Picture 1942. There is no pharmacy on every corner, no brightly lit drugstore humming with fluorescent light, no plastic bottles promising fast relief in 30 minutes or less. When your child woke up burning with fever in the middle of the night, you didn't reach for your keys. You reached for the kitchen, because for millions of American families stretched thin by depression, war, and uncertainty, medicine wasn't purchased. It was made. From memory. From instinct. From whatever sat on the shelf. From onion syrups that bubbled quietly on the counter overnight. To strange tonics that smelled worse than anything you could imagine. These weren't just home remedies. They were acts of love disguised as desperation. Today, we are counting down 25 forgotten homemade remedies and tonics that Americans once swore by, long before modern medicine arrived with its promises and its price tags. And stay with us until the very end, because one quiet truth buried inside, this list might completely change how you see what we call progress. Number 25. Castor oil. That thick, pale, unforgiving oil spooned out on Saturday mornings without negotiation. During the Great Depression, it was everywhere. Cheap, accessible, and believed to purge whatever ailed you. Your grandmother knew this without reading a single label. It was simply what you did. Modern laxatives eventually replaced it, but something about that Saturday morning ritual, the resigned swallow, the shudder, the glass of water after, stays in the memory like a scar. Number 24. Cod liver oil tonic. The smell alone was enough to make children scatter. But parents held firm, because this fishy, thick daily dose was rich in vitamins A and D at a time when rickets was still a real and genuine threat. And get this, it worked. Before fortified milk and chewable vitamins, this was the front line against childhood weakness. Today it has been rebranded as omega-3 capsules in amber bottles. The smell, thankfully, is better. Number 23. Turpentine sugar cubes. Here is where things get personal, because this one was whispered about, passed down in hushed tones between rural families who had almost nothing else. A single drop of turpentine on a sugar cube, taken for parasites or chest congestion. A holdover from 19th century medicine that quietly survived into the 20th. It is now recognized as genuinely toxic. But in those tenement kitchens and farmhouse back rooms, it wasn't cruelty. It was the only answer anyone had. Number 22. Mustard plaster. Mustard powder mixed into a paste and spread onto cloth, then pressed gently against the child's chest. The warmth it generated was real, a stimulation of blood flow to the skin when antibiotics didn't yet exist. Grandmothers checked every few minutes, careful not to leave it too long and cause burns. The real genius was in the attention it demanded. Someone had to stay close, had to watch, had to care. Modern warming patches exist today, but they don't come with that kind of vigil. Number 21. Onion syrup. Sliced onions layered with white sugar in a mason jar, left overnight while the house slept. By morning, a thick amber syrup had formed at the bottom. Sweet, sharp, and heavy with the smell of something working. Used across 1920s and 30s households as a cough suppressant. This remedy filled kitchens with an aroma you never quite forgot. We lost something when the pharmacy syrup arrived in its cheerful cherry flavor. We lost the proof that someone had stayed up thinking about you. Number 20. Vinegar and honey tonic. Oxymel. Apple cider vinegar and raw honey stirred together in a jar and kept on the shelf like a small amber lantern. Used for sore throats, sluggish digestion, and that deep winter fatigue that settled into your bones. Translation. This was the 1930s version of a wellness drink, made in your kitchen for almost nothing. It is popular again today in small batch bottles with elegant labels, but back then, it sat humbly next to the flour tin, asking nothing of you. Number 19. Baking soda water. A teaspoon stirred into a glass of water. The fizz, the salt, the immediate, no-nonsense relief of an upset stomach during years when every penny counted. But here's where it gets truly poignant. This remedy cost almost nothing, and it still worked. Commercial antacids eventually replaced it with foil packaging and brand recognition. The baking soda box stayed in the pantry, quietly waiting, as it always had. Number 18. Salt sock remedy. Coarse salt poured into a thick sock and heated in the oven until it radiated a deep, even warmth. Pressed against an aching ear, a sore muscle, or a child shivering with chills. The real genius was in its simplicity. It held heat longer than a cloth, shaped itself to the body, and cost almost nothing. Electric heating pads replaced it eventually, but they don't smell like a kitchen in winter. They don't carry the memory of hands that made them. Number 17. Molasses iron tonic. Blackstrap molasses, thick and dark as midnight, taken by the spoonful for fatigue and anemia during food shortages when iron-rich meals were a luxury. Sweet, in a heavy, reluctant way. Children took it with furrowed brows. Workers took it because they had to keep moving. Your great-grandfather knew this without a nutritionist telling him. The body needed iron, and the kitchen provided it the only way it could. Here is where things get personal. These weren't just remedies, they were declarations. In a world without insurance, without guarantees, without a clinic down the road, making medicine at home was an act of refusal. A refusal to surrender to helplessness. When a mother layered onions and sugar in a jar at midnight, she wasn't just treating a cough. She was saying, "I will not stop trying." And maybe that's what we've quietly lost. Not just the remedies themselves, but the feeling of being responsible for your own healing. The intimacy of it. The effort. We have more medicine today than at any point in human history. And yet, somehow, something about that midnight jar in the dark kitchen feels like it knew something we've forgotten. So here's a question worth sitting with. Would you trust a homemade remedy today? Or do you only trust what arrives in a sealed package? Tell us in the comments. We genuinely want to know. And if these forgotten stories mean something to you, subscribing keeps them coming. Number 16. Whiskey hot toddy. Whiskey, honey, lemon, and hot water. Reserved for adults. Administered quietly after the children were in bed, with a hushed kind of ceremony. A cold remedy, and a sleep aid, and an act of warmth all folded into one tin cup. Medical endorsement was never the point. Comfort was. And get this, it is still made today. Still passed between friends in winter kitchens, still carrying that echo of simpler times. Number 15. Camphor bags. Small cloth pouches worn around children's necks in winter, filled with camphor and believed to ward off colds and influenza. The smell was unmistakable, sharp, medicinal, somehow safe. Children were teased at school. Parents were unapologetic. We lost something when this one disappeared. Not its effectiveness, perhaps, but the visible, worn declaration that someone was protecting you. Number 14. Bread poultice. Stale bread soaked soft and pressed warm against a wound or a boil, believed to draw out infection through the skin. A last resort remedy made quickly from what was already there. Translation. When you couldn't call a doctor, you called on your kitchen. It was replaced by antibiotics and sterile dressings, rightly so. But the speed of it, the improvisation, the refusal to do nothing, that was something remarkable. Number 13. Pine needle tea, gathered from nearby forests in the deep of winter, brewed into a pale, resinous tea that was surprisingly high in vitamin C. Before citrus arrived on every table, before supplements lined every shelf, people walked outside and found what the season offered. Your grandmother knew this without a wellness blog telling her. The forest was the pharmacy. Number 12. Sulfur and molasses tonic. Every spring, without fail, this dreadful mixture appeared on kitchen tables across rural America. A blood purifier. A seasonal cleanse. The taste was something between bitter and brimstone, and no child survived it without protest. Medical science has since dismissed the concept of blood cleansing, but here's where it gets truly insightful. The ritual of it, that seasonal acknowledgement that the body needed tending, echoes loudly in today's detox culture. Number 11 through number 1. The raw egg milk tonics given to frail children. The garlic necklaces worn with quiet embarrassment. the lard salve stored in small tins on bathroom shelves, the vinegar steam rising under a towel. Draped over a bowed head, the activated charcoal used in urgent, frightening moments, the alarm stinging a fresh cut at the barbershop, the cool potato slices pressed against a feverish forehead, the thick honey and lard spooned out with patient hands, the Epsom salt soaking tired feet at the end of a long and unforgiving day. And finally, at number 1, the sassafras root tea, foraged from the woods, fragrant and golden, the ancestor of root beer, banned now for its safrole content. But once, it was spring itself in a cup. There is something quietly uncomfortable about reaching the end of this list, not because these remedies were strange, but because so many of them worked, not always, not perfectly, but often enough to matter, often enough to be remembered across generations, often enough to be made again tonight, in some kitchen somewhere, by someone who still trusts their hands. We didn't abandon these remedies only because science surpassed them. We abandoned them because we built an entire system around the promise of certainty. Fast, packaged, labeled certainty, and certainty has its cost. We lost something when healing became a transaction, when the midnight jar of onions and sugar became a branded bottle on a shelf, when the knowledge passed from grandmother to granddaughter was quietly filed away under old wives' tales and forgotten. These 25 forgotten remedies are not just curiosities from another era. They are evidence of something we rarely say out loud, that resilience was once ordinary, that people with almost nothing found ways to care for the ones they loved, using nothing more than a kitchen, a fire, and the knowledge their own parents had pressed into their hands. Not every remedy worked. Some were dangerous. Some were pure superstition dressed in flannel and wood smoke. But all of them, every single one, tell the same story. In the face of uncertainty, people did not wait. They improvised, they tried, they stayed up through the night and made something from nothing and called it medicine. Maybe that is the lesson worth carrying forward, because history isn't only about what we've lost. Sometimes it's about what we've forgotten we already know. If these hidden, overlooked, almost erased stories matter to you, hit subscribe. More forgotten American truths are waiting, and they deserve to be remembered.